So we are going to record this so that you can go back and look at it a little bit later on. What we're going to do is we're going to go right back into doing a review on the sinus rhythms. One of the things that I want to share with you on your exam a week from today, again, is I'm going to give you rhythms, and this exam will be all multiple choice, and there'll be some bonus questions on there for you as well. But you will have to identify whether the rhythm is normal sinus rhythm, sinus bradycardia, sinus tachycardia, sinus block, or sinus arrest, or none of the above. Okay, so this is going to add kind of a different dimension into what you got going on there. Hey, Colin, welcome. So this is going to give you a little bit of different dimension, because of what I want you to do is I want you to dig deep and to make sure that you are following
I'm on a Zoom
the
call.
5-step process that you've got going on there, so that you are able to identify the sinus rhythms, but you can also identify, and I don't expect you to know what the none of the above rhythm is, at least not yet. Trust me, you will know it by the time you get to the end of the semester. But all I want you to do is, if it's not one of those sinus rhythms that we've already covered to this point, as well as we're going to cover today, all I want you to do is just select that, not any of the above. Okay. Let me stop there and make sure, are there any questions in regards to the way the exam is going to be? It's only it will, there'll be some multiple choice as far as like questions about preload, afterload, the conduction system, as well as blood going through the heart. But the vast majority of this exam, and it'll probably be about 60 items, will be your rhythm strips. But any questions, now is the time to ask them. We got plenty of time here. All right, I'm not hearing any. Again, your discussion has been really, really good up to this point. And what I want you to do is to carry it on, because we got to have good discussion today, good discussion on Monday, so that you guys will, as a class, qualify for that 10% bonus as far as your next exam goes. Okay. So again, couple of options that you have here. Sometimes people don't want to talk on camera. That's perfectly okay. If you have a question or a comment, put it down in the chat box if you don't want to talk on Zoom or on the camera. Okay. All right. So let me get the PowerPoints pulled up here. Let me get them shared, and we shall begin. All right. Somebody give me a idea. Can you see the kind of black and blue slides that say EMC 303 Intro to Cardiology? Are those viewable? Are you able to see those?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, thanks, Marty. All right, here we go. All right. Now, this is what I do, guys. Again, we're going to go back and we're going to review the conduction system of the heart, okay? Because again, each piece of this builds upon the other. So again, just like the skeletal muscles, the muscles of the heart are stimulated by electricity to contract. So we have to have both electrical and mechanical action. Now, this stimulation is called excitation. That's one of the things that you'll need to know as far as the properties of the heart. Now, the electrical activity of a single cell can be looked at on an EKG as it spreads throughout the entire heart. And as we shared so far in this semester, that this EKG is just simply a graph of the electrical responses. This is going to be something that's going to be really, really important. So again, as we go through this, let's go back and review the different parts, okay? So you got to have a systematic approach so that you don't miss anything that's important. But sometimes, especially early on in your career, you will have some things that are commonly missed. So we got to understand everything that the waveforms represent as far as when we're going through here. Okay. Now, Marty, you're up on my screen. Tell me what the P wave represents on the EKG.
Atrial depolarization.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is said perfectly. Please don't tell me that it is atrial contraction, because again, and I know I'm repeating myself, and it's not because I'm old and forgetful. In this situation, it's because it's really, really important. This P wave represents atrial depolarization. Now, Chris, let me come over to you. Where is the inherent pacing site in the atria? What is the normal inherent pacing site in the atria?
It's going to be the SA node.
SA node, you're exactly right. The SA node, okay? And again, as we go through here, we know that the SA node fires under normal circumstances between 60 to 100. Now, Paisley, when it leaves the SA node, where does it go? How does it travel over to the left atria? How does it get there?
Is it like the bronchial, like?
Say it again.
I don't know. I don't know.
No,
what it's called.
I think you were right. I think you were right.
The bronchial?
No, the bronchioles are in the lungs, but it is a B.
Bachman's bundle.
Yes.
Bachman's bundle. Okay. Awesome. So, okay. So again, these are new terms that I want you to learn. I'm betting that Ann is giving you a little bit of help there. So I think she said the right thing as well. So again, we're okay on that. All right. And so that's the thing that we're going to begin to look at here on this Bachman's bundle. Now, as it comes down to the AV node, how does it get there? Sam, what about you? How does this electrical, what track does it take to get down to the AV node?
The internodal pathways.
Yep. So the internodal pathways. Inter means between, like interstate. So we have I-75 that runs through Kentucky and up through Ohio and down through Tennessee and through multiple states. It's the same way within the heart. So we go from the SA node down to the AV node. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So now when we get in here, then we have the PR interval. And the PR interval represents the time from when the SA node fires to the time that it is released from the AV node. And as we've talked in class, you know that it's important that it gets held up there in that AV node, because otherwise we do not have adequate ventricular or atrial filling of blood. That comes back to that word called preload. Preload means what, ladies and gentlemen? Somebody just unmute yourself and shout it out, or type it in the chat box.
The volume of blood that goes into the atria.
Sarah, perfect. Perfect. Yeah. It's the volume. Okay. It's the volume. Now remember, preload and afterload are similar but different. So, as Sarah said, the volume, the amount that comes in. Okay. Now, let's talk about this for just a little bit, because we'll have more of this on our review as well. If we increase preload, Perry, I'm going to give this one to you. Okay. If we have an increase in preload, does that increase or decrease our cardiac output?
Decrease cardiac output.
Say it for me one more time.
Decrease cardiac
Increase.
output.
Yeah, it's going to increase our output. So preload and cardiac output follow the same direction. Okay. Now, just by way of review, afterload. When we're talking about afterload in here, okay, Madison, what is afterload? You look like you're looking for your mute button there. Sometimes it hides. It's okay.
No.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're okay.
I'm not entirely sure, but I know that um, it's essentially what goes out, and if it increases, then it causes the stroke volume to decrease.
So you got 90% of it right. You're exactly right. So it's not the volume that goes out, but it's the amount of pressure that the left ventricle has to exert to get it out. Remember, afterload is very, very similar to blood pressure. So when we get vascular constriction, blood pressure goes up. In essence, the interstate gets smaller, and so we get fewer cars that are going to be able to pass. And so when, just like you said, Madison, when afterload goes up, cardiac output goes down. Excellent job, guys. Let me tell you, preload and afterload are going to be concepts that will carry you to success throughout your entire paramedic education. So if you can master those, you're going to be halfway there. Okay. So again,
I have a
that
question.
Please jump
Sorry.
out there. No,
Will you
don't
remind me
apologize.
what the difference between afterload and blood pressure is?
Really, there's not much at all. Okay. So afterload is how much pressure that the ventricle has to exert. So basically, it is the blood pressure that we find in the left ventricle. That is dependent upon whatever is the blood pressure in the vasculature as it goes out. Remember, vasculature, when it's dilated, afterload will be lowered because the pressure in the vasculature, and in particular the arterial system, is going to be lowered. Now again, remind me, if we do this to our arterial system and it constricts, does blood pressure go up or does blood pressure go down? And anybody can jump out there.
It goes up.
Yeah, it goes up. That's afterload. So when blood pressure in the vasculature goes up, blood pressure in the left ventricle also goes up. That's increasing your afterload, and that's going to lead down to a decreased cardiac output. Does that help? I mean, if that's not clear, now's the time to get it cleared up. Okay, don't hear anything, so I'm going to go on. All right. So as we're looking at this, the QRS, Shauna, what does the QRS represent?
Ventricular depolarization.
Yeah, ventricular depolarization. Now, again, what we're looking at on the slide here is this is a classic QRS or a classic EKG complex. Here's the thing you got to remember, okay? Your QRS can go up above, with the vast majority of it up above the line, up above the baseline. And remember, the baseline is literally just that area in here. Let me get to this. This right here is our baseline. That right there is our baseline. Here's more baseline. Here's more baseline. And so this just simply says that this particular QRS is one view of the heart. Now you're going to learn how to get 12 different views of the heart, and depending upon what direction we're looking at, that QRS could have the majority of it going down. Still going to be called the QRS, okay? Now, Gavin, where do we find the J point on the EKG?
I'm not entirely for sure.
Okay, and that's okay. Guys, when we're working together, I'm not sure or I don't know are always appropriate answers. So don't feel bashful about saying I just don't know. So the J point is actually found right there. Now on this particular EKG, this is a perfect looking EKG, but guess what? This probably was, I can guarantee it, this one was not generated by a human, because again, we talked about in class on Monday about the fact that you can get artifact in there and you can begin to see different types of interference on the line. So sometimes the J point is a little more difficult to identify, but the importance of the J point is going to be, that's where we're going to identify whether that ST segment is going up above the baseline or if it's dropping down below the baseline. Now, we're going to talk about the importance of why you need to be able to identify it in this particular class. But when you get in advanced cardiology, that J point is going to become critical for you to be able to identify and to measure, because that's how you're going to tell whether your patient is having an MI based on what we see on our EKG. Okay. So now, as we're going on and carrying on through here, again, Ethan, what does the T wave represent?
Ventricular
It's going to be ventricular repolarization.
Nope, not change that re with the D. I'm sorry. No. My brain is shut down. I'm sorry. You're exactly right. It is repolarization. Don't laugh at me, Sarah. I have feelings. Wait a minute. I don't have feelings. Yeah, so it is ventricular repolarization. So the ventricles are repolarizing, they're reloading so that they can get ready to fire again. Now, we're not done with the T wave, okay? So as we come right over here to our T wave, we're going to split it in half, okay? All right, I can't draw with a mouse, but that's okay. Cooper, the front half of this repolarization phase is known as what?
Is it ventricular depolarization?
No, it's all of the T wave is repolarization, but the front half of the T wave represents the absolute refractory period. Absolute refractory period. Now remember, we said with the absolute refractory period, it doesn't matter how strong the impulse is or where it hits on the front side of this T wave, it's just going to bounce off. There's going to be no harm that's going to come to our patient. Okay. Now, Colin, what do we call the downslope of the T wave?
At the relative refractory period.
All right, Colin, let's go for the bonus points. What does that mean?
Oh, it's like, isn't it where like another contraction, like the electrical impulse can happen again?
Yep, you're exactly right. So we get an electrical impulse that happens at that spot on the downward slope of the T wave, and if it is strong enough, that's called R on T phenomenon. Okay, R on T phenomenon. Remember that. Okay, and basically what happens is it puts our patient into ventricular fibrillation, which is a form of cardiac arrest. We will talk about that much more a little bit later on in the semester. So again, as we're going to go in here, remember those parts of the EKG, remember what they do, and then again, let's take a look at the steps. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we want to identify let me get over here to the steps because we've covered all this already. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to identify the rate. All right, Juliet, what's a normal heart rate? You look like you're about to panic there. What's the normal heart rate?
60, 100.
60 to 100.
Yes, ma'am. Very good. So it is 60 to 100, and it is inclusive of 60 and 100. So 60 is normal. It's not slow. 100 is normal. It's not fast. We get anything that goes above 1 or goes 101 or above, now it's called a tachycardia. Doesn't necessarily mean it's abnormal, just that's the name of it. Anything at 59 or below, we call it a bradycardia. Again, doesn't mean that it's life-threatening, but it just means that it's slow. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our rate. Second thing we're going to do is we've got to identify if the rhythm is regular or irregular. Jasmine, if we identify that the rhythm is irregular, what's the very next question that we've got to identify?
How irregular it is.
Yes, very good. So basically what we got to do is we got to identify how irregular it is. And along that same line, is there a repeatable pattern to its irregularity? On your exams, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to make kind of a change. And some of your exams will have strips that will be longer than 6 seconds on both regular rhythms as well as irregular rhythms so that you get some experience on identifying those patterns that are in there. Okay. So that's going to be really important. Now, let me ask you a question as we're looking at this. Sophia, what sinus rhythm have we learned that is irregular, but is irregular based upon a pattern? And that's to Sophia. All right. Ashton, how about you? What rhythm, sinus rhythm, have we learned? We just learned it on Monday, I think, that is irregular, but it has a repeatable pattern. Excellent, 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 Ashton. Yeah, you're exactly. Go ahead, Sophia. What were you going to say?
I was going to say the same thing.
Perfect. Yep. Oh, okay. That's okay. I've got the chat pulled up here. So if your mic doesn't work, if you don't want to talk, just type it in there for me. Okay.
Gotcha.
So
Sorry.
it is sinus. It's okay. It's sinus arrhythmia. Okay. Now, again, remember, sinus arrhythmia is dependent upon our breathing, and we'll be able to actually cause sinus arrhythmia when we get to the point in the semester where you guys are going to hook each other up on EKGs and you're going to do EKGs. Okay. Step number 3 is we got to look at the P wave. All right. In the P wave, Eli, how do we know if the P wave is normal?
Would it be that it goes up and down?
Yep. It's just simply going to be up above the baseline. Under normal circumstances, it should be rounded, but sometimes it'll be peaked, kind of more like a mountain rather than a hill. And so, but we don't care. As long as it's going up above the baseline, that tells us it's normal. All right. Then we look at the PR interval. All right. So we identify the PR interval. Let me go back here to the beginning of my listing here. So, Shauna, what is the normal time length of a, I'm sorry, no. Finish eating. Marty, what is the normal time width of a PR interval, of a normal PR interval?
0.12 to 0.20 milliseconds.
Now, milliseconds.
I mean, seconds.
Or how many milliseconds?
Let's see, 120 to 200 milliseconds.
Perfect. And again, the reason I ask you to learn it in both ways is because when you're running a 12 lead, it'll give it to you in milliseconds. You don't have to measure that yourself. Excellent. Next thing we'll also want to do is, again, we want to identify, is that PR interval stay constant or does it change? Okay, because we'll talk about some dysrhythmias, especially when we talk about heart blocks, in which it changes. Sometimes there's a pattern to it. Sometimes there's no pattern to it whatsoever. Then, Ethan, last thing we want to do is we want to identify, is our QRS normal? Okay, what's the normal width of a QRS?
Is it 3 little blocks?
Yep. And how much time is that, Ethan, for 3 little blocks?
0.02.
Nope. It's point. Now remember, each little block is 0.04 seconds. So if we have 3 of them, that means it's going to be 0.12 seconds. So that's what we're going to be looking for. Anybody room, and you can unmute, and I'll throw this out to the whole group or put it in chat box. If we get a QRS that is wider, and sometimes especially very wide, what does that tell us about that QRS?
It's slower to respond.
many times we will see, yeah, many times it'll be slow. But the other thing to keep in mind is that we can actually have some rhythms that'll be really fast up in the 200s. Juliet, what were you saying?
Well, I was thinking about the tombstone, and how that shows a heart attack.
You've been reading ahead, haven't you, young lady? That's awesome.
Yeah, we talked about it in human anatomy and physiology.
Okay, so if you're in the E&P right now, make sure that you're listening, especially to the cardiac part, because that will help you. So, Juliet, not so much on tombstone waves in there, but you're exactly right. Tombstone waves are as bad as they sound, okay? And you'll learn about that in advanced cardiology. But again, when that QRS gets wider than 0.12, that tells us that the impulse is most likely coming from the ventricles because the conduction pathway is all messed up, okay? Now, one of the things that I'm going to do on this very first exam, and I will have these for you, is I'm going to print these steps off because I want you to refer to them. This will be the only exam in which I will let you use a reference material that will have these 5 steps on there because it's critically important for me to be able to know that you know those steps as you're going through. So again, I will provide these for you the day of the exam. All right. So, Sam, this one is going to be yours. All right. Let's make the assumption that everything that we're going to see on here is 6 seconds in width, okay, in length. So, Sam, what is the rate that you see here? And don't forget to unmute your mic there.
Looks like 60, but my eyes aren't that good.
Oh, well, that's okay. So, how many QRS complexes? Remember, if we're looking at a 6 second strip, we're going to count all of the QRS complexes. So let me get over here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me move your pictures out of the way. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so our QRS, our rate is actually 80 and not 60. Okay. Now, Sam, I'm going to stay with you, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to get as many of you all through this. Okay. So the rate is 80. Normal or abnormal rate?
Normal.
Perfect. Very, very good. Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you see P waves?
Yes.
Do they look normal?
Yes.
Now, here's the other thing I want to add to you as part of your P waves. What you want to do is you want to, as you're going across on your EKG, you want to compare them to each other as well, as far as answering that question of whether they are normal or not, because we can have certain types of EKGs, and we will jump into these types again the week after your exam, of where you will have one part of the atrial that will fire, and then you'll have another part of the atrial that will fire. And the way that we know that is by that their P waves look different from each other. Okay. Now, is this rhythm regular or irregular, Sam?
It looks regular.
I would agree with you. Very, very good. So far, we got a normal rate. We've got normal looking P waves. We got a regular rhythm. Okay. Now, number 4. Take a look at the PR interval. Does it look to be within normal width?
Yes.
What would you estimate, Sam, that the width of the PR interval is? Again, it's a little difficult to tell because when we project these, it's not always the best. So kind of like horseshoes and hand grenades, close will be fine.
Looks like 3 little boxes.
Okay. Now, I would say it's probably more closer. Let me get out of there. So we've got one box there, two boxes there. So I always say it's closer to either 3.5 or 4. But again, that's just me. So you say 3 boxes. I'm okay with that. Is that within a normal width?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. One last thing we're going to measure here, Sam. QRS. Is that within a normal width?
Yes.
So, Sam, we got a normal rate, regular rhythm, P waves that look normal. Forgot to ask about this, but we see a P wave for every QRS. We see a QRS for every P wave. The P waves all look the same moving across. We got a normal PR interval, and we've got a normal QRS. So, Sam, name that tune. What is that EKG?
Normal sinus rhythm.
Yes, you're exactly right. I don't know why I don't have the. Oh, you know what? I know why. Because this was a demonstration one. There you go. It's normal sinus rhythm. Now let me stop there, guys. And again, I will do this periodically. But if you don't say, "Hey, Bill, I don't understand why this is normal sinus rhythm," I have to work off the assumption that you know this and that you will get these kind of rhythms correct. Anybody not understand why this is normal sinus rhythm? Okay, don't hear anything. That's a good sign. At least that's a good sign for me. All right. Juliet, this one's going to be yours. Okay. Now, rate.
Is this a 6-second?
These are all 6 seconds. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So 60 BPM.
Good. Slow, normal, or fast?
That's normal.
Excellent. Rhythm.
It's irregular.
Ooh, very good. Yep, you're exactly right. It is irregular. Now, let me ask you a question. This is only a 6-second strip, so it's hard to tell, but based on what you can see, do you see a pattern to its irregularity?
Yes.
Very good. Very good. So, yes, I would agree with you as well.
It
Go
looks
ahead.
like there's just 2 beats that are missing there after the second beat, and then after the third beat that's shown, it looks like it's missing 2 beats.
Ah, okay. So now this is going to be important because remember, we have 3 types of rhythms that we've learned that are sinus rhythms that can sometimes look like that they're missing one or more beats. So here's the thing we got to do. We got to look at this progression of this R to R interval here. And then we look at the progression of this R to R interval here. And then we look at this progression of this R to R interval. And then immediately we come right back over here. Now, Juliet, tell me what you see in that progression.
What exactly are you asking about?
So, what's the pattern? What do you see in the pattern of that progression of the distance between the first R to R, the second R to R, the third R to R, and the fourth? And the R to R is the distance between, we call it R to R, but it's the distance between the QRS complexes.
Well, I mean, based off of timing, it looks like 4 big boxes, 6 big boxes, 7 big boxes, 4 big boxes.
Excellent. So what we're doing is we're seeing, as we're starting out with this one right here, we see that's our baseline. So we come over here, this one's longer. Then we come over here, this one is longer. And then we go back to pretty much what we saw over here in the first one. So we see a progression and then it comes back. Very good. Very good. Now, Juliet, you see P waves and do they look normal?
I see P waves and they do look.
I would agree. Do they look the same going across the 6-second strip?
Yes.
Awesome. Very, very good. Okay. Now, take a look at the PR interval and tell me, does the PR interval look to be within normal width?
From what I can tell based off the picture, it looks to be 3 little boxes, which would be normal.
I can go with that. Okay. So that would be 0.12 seconds. And so that would be normal. Next question, Julia.
Mhm.
Is the PR interval constant or does it change?
It looks like there might be a couple times that it's a little bit shorter.
But as long as it stays within one small box, then we're okay. So I would tell you that the PR interval actually looks pretty constant to me. Now, here's the last question. So far, you've done really well on this. Your QRS, is it of a normal width?
It looks to be about 1 box, so yes.
Awesome. And is that normal?
Yes.
Outstanding. So, Julia, what would you call that rhythm? Now, remember, what we're reviewing today, these are all sinus rhythms. So there will not be none of the above rhythms on this one.
Would this be a sinus arrhythmia?
Why did it not show up? Oh, you know what? I know why. Because I'm still okay. Look at that. Yes, you are correct. Yes, you're exactly right. It would be sinus arrhythmia. And again, real quickly, Julia, what makes a person have sinus arrhythmia?
I'm pretty sure you guys talked about this on Monday, right? When I wasn't there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, like you said earlier, like breathing is what you said.
Yeah. So
But I don't know the exact.
Yeah. So breathing in and out causes the rate to slow down and to speed up. But yeah, you're exactly right. All right. Good. So I'm recording this one. So this will come back for anybody that might have not been there Monday. We'll help you to be able to do that. Marty, this one's yours. What is your rate?
40.
That's pretty easy to calculate. Okay. Now I'm going to follow my own slides. What's your rhythm? Same slide. Just.
It looks like it's wider than normal, so it'd be slower.
No, remember with rhythm, we're looking at regular or irregular.
Oh, regular. It's regular.
Okay, good. It's regular. Okay, excellent, Marty. So come back. Do you see a P wave for every QRS? And again, it jumps around a little bit, but it's the same rhythm. Do you see a QRS for every P wave?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Now, let's take a look at the PR interval. Does it look to be within normal time frame?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, excellent. What would you estimate the time frame to be? And Ashton, I just now saw your input on chat box. Excellent breathing. You're exactly right. Good job.
It looks like it's about 4 boxes to me.
Okay. Is that normal?
Yes, that'd be normal.
Absolutely. So, there's rarely going to be a hard and fixed anything within medicine, but definitely within these measurements, that's definitely going to be something that we're going to begin to look at. So yeah, we're exactly right. That is going to be the upper limit of normal. Last question, Marty. Tell me about the QRS. Is it within a normal width?
Yes, it looks like it is.
Yes. So, Marty, name that rhythm.
Sinus bradycardia.
Excellent. You're exactly right. So let me stop just a minute on this one or the other one because I didn't stop on that one. Anybody not understand why the previous rhythm was sinus arrhythmia or why this one is sinus bradycardia? All right. All I hear are crickets. So let's move on. Ethan, this is yours. What's the rate here? Disregard the hash marks at the top. The whole thing is a 6-second strip. Okay.
It's gonna be 130.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Excellent. Very good. Okay. So that tells us it's going to be too fast. It's going to be fast. So it's going to be a tachycardia of some type. Ethan, what do you notice about the rhythm? Regular,
Is it
or
regular?
irregular? Say it again.
Is it regular?
Yes, sir. It is good. So if we were to measure the boxes here and the boxes here moving across, we would find within one small box that it's going to be the same width. Okay. P waves. Do the P waves look normal?
Yeah, they look normal.
Does every QRS have a P wave?
Yes.
Every P wave have a QRS?
Yeah.
Excellent. So far, you're batting 1,000. Thank you. So let's look at the PR interval here. Does it look to be within a normal width?
Yeah, it looks like it's like about 3 boxes.
I could go with that. Good. Good answer. Staying right here, Ethan. What about the QRS? Does it look to be normal as well?
Yeah, it's like maybe 1 box, probably like half a box.
I can go with that. Good. So, Ethan, everything's normal about this rhythm except its rate. What is that?
Sinus tachycardia.
Excellent. You are exactly right. Sinus tachycardia. Okay. Which means this is coming from the SA node, but our patient's heart is beating fast. Now, let me ask you a question, and I'll throw this out to the whole group. Okay. Either unmute and tell me or type it in the chat box. What are some things that can cause sinus tachycardia? Exercise, Colin says. That's one. Give me another one. Other than exercise, what else? Yeah, Chris, you're exactly right. Stress, fast breathing. You're exactly right. So that can speed it up. Now, let me ask you this question on the one that Marty had a while ago. What can cause sinus bradycardia? Sam.
Sleeping.
Sleeping in? Sam, what were you going to say?
Sleeping.
Sleeping. Good, good, good. Yep, you're exactly right. What's one other thing that can cause sinus bradycardia?
If you're a runner, you could have a naturally low rate.
Perfect, Sophia. You're exactly right. A runner or even people who lift weights because they're building up that pressure in their chest as they are regularly lifting weights. Make sure you remember those guys because as you're going through, again, simply because we've got a fast rate, that may, even though it's fast, that may be totally normal. Stress, caffeine, anxiety, that'll kick it up. Okay. Simply because you got a slow rate doesn't mean that it's abnormal or it's life threatening either. Okay. Excellent. Very, very good. All right. So, Emily, this one is yours. Tell me the rate. Again, disregard these at the top. The entire strip is 6 seconds.
Is it 60?
Yep. Regular or irregular?
Irregular.
Now it's hard to tell in here, but can you see a pattern developing or not in here?
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Do you see P waves?
Yeah.
Do they look normal?
Yes.
Do they all look the same?
Yeah.
Does every P wave have a QRS?
Yes.
Does every QRS have a P wave?
Yeah.
You're awesome. Excellent. Now, let's take a look at the PR interval. Does it look to be normal?
Yeah.
What would you estimate the PR interval with being?
I think 4 boxes.
Okay, I can go with that, which would mean in seconds or milliseconds, whichever one you choose. What is that width?
0.16.
0.16. Good, good, good. Last question. Normal width of the QRS or abnormal?
Normal. It looks like 2 boxes.
Yeah, so it is normal. Okay. So again, name that rhythm for me.
It's either a sinus arrest or sinus block, but I forget which one.
All right, so you've got it narrowed down to 2 potential answers. What can you tell me about the difference between sinus arrest and sinus block? There's one big, big difference, Emily.
Well, one of them is missing like 1 beat and one is missing like 2 or more.
So which one is missing the 1 beat and which one's missing 2 or more?
So the block is missing 1.
Mm-hmm.
So is it sinus arrest?
Yes, very, very good. Yeah, you're exactly right. Okay. So again, as we're looking at this and we're comparing from this R to R to this R to R, how many QRS complexes, Emily, I'm going to stay with you. How many would you estimate are missing? How many QRS complexes are missing?
I'd say like 2 or 3.
Yeah, 2 to 3. Sophia says 1 to 3. Now, Sophia, it can't be 1 because if it was only 1, then it would be what rhythm?
Block.
Block. Yep, I heard somebody say block. Yep, you're exactly right. So I would say that there's at least 2, and I would tell you maybe, that's okay. Not a problem. So I would say that there is at least 2 and maybe 3 QRSs that are missing in there. Now, and I'll throw this out to the entire group. What is our biggest concern with sinus arrest? What do we want to watch our patient for? Anybody? Okay. All right. So the question was, what is our biggest concern with sinus arrest for our patient? Say it again.
Ventricular fibrillation.
If it continues to get worse, it could potentially get into that. But basically, what we're looking at here is a slow heart rate that is irregular. All right. Now, remember, we talked about Marty had one a while ago that was sinus bradycardia. And so we look at our patient. But again, in this particular situation, especially if we have a bunch of these arrest phases in here, or if it, for whatever reason, now begins to get longer, our heart rate is going to drop. Remember, when our heart rate drops, cardiac output also drops. Okay. So we'll learn more about that when we get into some symptomatic bradycardia. But again, our biggest concern here would be whether or not our patient is going to be perfused. All right. Any questions on sinus arrest? All right, Paisley. 6-second strip. What's the heart rate here?
50.
Is how much?
50 beats per minute.
So at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, very, very good. Now, if you'll notice in here, it says on this that your heart rate is 37. This is over a longer period of time. So this is one of the reasons why you want to go back and compare what you're looking at on the EKG with what it's telling you on the monitor. Remember, the 6-second strip is only a snapshot in time. So Paisley, would you say that this rhythm is regular or irregular?
Regular?
Good. Very, very good. Do you see a P wave for every QRS?
Yes.
Do the P waves look normal?
Yes.
Good. Does every QRS have a P wave?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So let's magnify this up just a bit. What can you tell me about the PR interval as far as its width?
Four small boxes.
Okay. And that would be how much time?
0.16 seconds.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Take one last look at the QRS. Tell me, is that normal or abnormal?
Normal.
Excellent. Okay. So, Paisley, what's this rhythm?
Sinus bradycardia.
Named it. Named it. Good. All right. Sinus bradycardia. Now, let me ask you guys, and I'll throw this out to everybody. Let me magnify it just a little bit of a review. What's the squiggly line along through the bottom here? Why do we see that? What are some causes of that?
It's artifact that could be caused from radios or possibly sweat on the chest.
Perfect. Or, as Chris says, excellent. Chest hair and movement of the patient. Again, here's the other thing to keep in mind is it's not only movement from the patient, but if you got the patient in the back of your ambulance and you're going down a gravel road, guess what? You're going to get some artifact. Even though your patient is sitting still on the stretcher, now we begin to get some of that artifact. Juliet, 100% right. If your the electrodes themselves are not attached and you have good, secure contact. Remember, we brought some electrodes into the classroom and you had that little button of electrode gel, kind of like a sponge in the middle. That's got to make contact with the skin. Now, we don't want to go down and put a bunch of pressure on top of that, because that will squish, technical medical term there, squish out the gel that's in that. And now we don't have good contact anymore. But what we want to do is to apply gentle pressure to make sure that that sponge is making contact with the patient. Good, good job. Gavin, this one's going to be yours. Rate.
Maybe 60.
Excellent. Rhythm.
Irregular?
Absolutely. Now, Gavin, remember, if we say a rhythm is irregular, now we got to answer our next question. Do you have enough information there to see a pattern?
Not for sure.
Okay.
I don't know for sure.
So I would agree with you on this one. We really don't, at this point, I wouldn't expect you to be able to see a real definite pattern in there. But I will tell you, there is one. Okay. So what I would tell you is that, remember, we've got this widened QRS. It gets wider here, and now it's becoming more narrow here. All right. So I will tell you, there is a pattern to its irregularity. Do you see P waves?
Yes.
Do they look normal?
Yes.
For the most part now here, this one kind of, it might kind of trick you up, but do they look alike?
Some of them do.
Okay. Which one do you feel like looks different? This would be QRS1 all the way through. So tell me which one that you would feel like would look different.
Like the fourth one? Well, no, fifth one. Yeah.
Fifth one. Okay, good. So, yes, this one does look a little bit different. And the reason being is because the rate is increasing. Okay. But I will tell you on this, and I will do my best just to give you guys, especially because we're early on, straightforward. And I'll try to do my best not to put anything like this one on here. But I will tell you that that P wave is the same as all the others. Okay. Now, Gavin, if we look in here, normal PR interval or abnormal?
It's like 2 boxes. So,
Well, it's hard to see because again, we got a bunch of kind of white spaces in there. But let me go to something different here. So I would tell you our PR interval would start right here on this box, and it would end right here on this box. So I would tell you it's either 3, potentially 4 boxes wide, which would make it normal or abnormal, Gavin?
be normal.
Does it appear to be the same all the way across?
Yes.
Perfect. Tell me what you notice about the QRS in there.
I'm not for sure on that one.
Okay, so let me clarify it a little bit for you. Does it look like it's of a normal width?
No.
So yeah, it actually is, because that's actually just one small box, which would make the width 0.04 seconds, which is completely normal. Okay, so Gavin, what would you identify this rhythm as? Remember, it's one of the sinus rhythms that we've already talked about.
Sinus arrhythmia?
Perfect. You are exactly right. Sinus arrhythmia. Very good. Now, again, anybody not see why that's sinus arrhythmia? Madison, this one's yours. What's the rate? Oh, hold on. Jasmine, does the length of the QRS matter? Jasmine, great question. Okay. I will tell you the length or the width of the QRS, which is, we can call it either one of them. But again, if it gets beyond 0.12 seconds, that's an indicator that that QRS is actually originating in the ventricle. So we have some malfunction. Oh, the height. Yes, it does. But for this class, we don't worry about it. So yes, it does. We can actually begin to, let me go back to the slide. Let me mark on it. So look down here at the bottom. We can actually have a condition. Here's our first QRS, and then there's our next one. And then here's our next one, and then here's our next one. And that alternate in height. And that can come about as a result of a condition called pericardial tamponade. Basically, the heart is being squeezed by its own fluid or its own blood. And so, yes, it does have a big impact on things that we will talk about in advanced cardiology. But yes, any of these questions that you have, throw them out there and we'll talk about them. The other thing that we're going to look at here is, remember, Jasmine, what does the height of the QRS indicate? Just type it in there. There you go.
Voltage.
Voltage, okay. Remember, if we got a little tiny QRS, that tells us that we may have, not always, but we may have low voltage in the ventricle. And that's something else that we want to take a look at. Again, that will come in advanced cardiology. Excellent question. Madison, I'm going to skip this one because I think this is the very one that Marty had a while ago. Let's go with this one. Again, what is the rate that you see here on this EKG, Madison?
70.
Excellent. Very, very good. Why is it not 80?
Because the first one doesn't have a QRS.
I love being around smart people. Excellent. Rhythm.
Looks regular.
Perfect. Do you see P waves?
Yes.
Do they look normal?
Yes.
Ah. Do they look the same moving across?
Yes.
Okay. Let's enlarge it just a bit. Take a look at the PR interval. Does it look to be normal width for you?
I'd say it's like 3 or 4 boxes.
Is that normal?
So yes, normal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can agree with you. I think it is 3 or 4 boxes. What about your QRS?
Looks about 1 box, so that's normal.
Perfect. All right. What is that rhythm?
Normal sinus rhythm.
You are exactly right. You're exactly right. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we do, and these Zoom meetings are going to be the exception rather than the rule for our class. Okay. And so, what I want to do is we're going to stop right there because an hour on Zoom gets very tiring. But let me just stop for a second and say, what questions do you have? What do you not understand?
I have a question about when we would select like none of the above, like not a sinus rhythm or something, like you
Okay,
were talking about
good.
earlier.
So what I'm going to do here, Emily, is I'm going to give you rhythms, obviously. When you're looking at that, again, you got to go through that 5-step process. So literally, you may have a rhythm that has normal everything except the QRS is like 0.20 or 0.24 seconds width. If you get a QRS that's that wide, is that going to be a sinus rhythm? No, you're exactly right. So it's not going to be a sinus rhythm. So that's when you would, because you don't know what it is yet, you will. All I want you to do is to identify that as not a sinus rhythm. So I may give you a rhythm where it's absent P waves. That automatically eliminates it from being a sinus rhythm, or the P waves may be upside down. That automatically eliminates it from being one of the sinus rhythms that we've looked at there, and you can eliminate that. So that's where you would go in and you would select not a sinus rhythm. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm not in any hurry.
So for the ones that have irregular rhythms, what happens if there's not a pattern to it?
I'm glad you brought that up because those will be the atrial rhythms that we will look at not next week because we're testing next week, but the following week. Okay, so hold that question, Sarah, because we will get to that in 2 weeks. I promise. Okay, excellent. Anybody else? All right, guys, I'm going to hold on. Timing is time, Ashton. Time is my main thing, like the boxes. Tell me, type a little more in there, Ashton, about what do you mean by timing? Counting, being able to see the boxes. So while he's typing his answer in there, one of the things I promise you on this exam is that remembering the time in between. Okay, so the big thing you got to remember is 2 measurements, 0.12 to 0.20 or 120 to 200 milliseconds. That's the width of your PR interval. Okay, one small box is 0.04, which is the width of your or 3 small boxes, time multiply that's the width of your normal QRS. And as such, those are the ones that you got to remember right now. So we will do another review on Monday. We're going to go over everything that's on the review guide. That should be available on Blackboard under documents now. I'll hang out here for a few minutes if anybody needs to chat with me one-on-one. Unless you have any questions and you want to talk to me, you're free to log off. I will have this video uploaded and on Blackboard, and I'll send you the link out a little bit later on this afternoon. All right. You guys go enjoy yourself. Good job today, by the way.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you, Sophia. I appreciate it. Thanks, Ashton.
Bill, could you pull up the rhythm that I did
Thank you.
again? The first
Thanks,
sinus
Marty.
arrhythmia.
Say that for me one more time, Juliet.
Could you pull up the one that I did again so that I can take a screenshot of it? Because I didn't get a screenshot of it because I wasn't doing it.
Hold on just a second. I will be happy to. Let me share the screen. And which one was yours?
It was a sinus. It was the first sinus arrhythmia one that you put up.
Let's see. Was it sinus arrhythmia? Did you say?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, might have been.
Oh yeah, that looks
one
like
right
it.
there.
I think.
Is that it?
That one.
Okay.
Okay. Let me get a screenshot real quick.
Yeah, go right ahead.
And so on Monday, you guys talked about sinus arrhythmia, sinus arrest, and sinus block.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So go back and review those. And again, we will hit those again on Monday. So you're not going to have missed a huge amount. Did you get what you wanted to
Yes,
copy?
I got the screenshot.
All right. Excellent.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else I can do for you?
That's it.
All right. So this is recorded. So again, you can utilize this to go back and do some of the review. You were sick Monday, right?
Yeah, I was out on Monday.
Are you feeling better?
Yeah, a little.
Good. Good. Okay. All right. If you need anything, Juliet, let me know. Okay.
All right, we'll do.
Bye-bye.
Bye.